Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Elisa Sklar. I am the VP of Marketing at GIS Planning, and I'm here today with Aaron Brossois from Golden Shovel Agency. Hello, Aaron.
Hello, Elisa. How are you?
Very good. We're looking forward to a great webinar today.
Yeah, looking forward to being here too.
And so with that, we will get started. We were going to talk to you guys today about 10 key trends for economic development websites in 2018 and coming up, looking ahead to 2019. And we're gonna work our way down. We're gonna be starting at 10 and working down to number 1. I guess generally, both Aaron and myself, as we work with clients across the fields of economic development, we get a lot of questions about what are some of the most important trends when it comes to place marketing and to websites in general. And we know that some of the questions we get, some of the answers we hear from our clients are pretty consistent. We know that workforce attraction remains really important. Of course, business retention, business expansion, business attraction, these are the mainstays in economic development marketing. But how we actually go about achieving those goals, what are the tools and techniques that we're using, that can change from time to time. And a lot of that depends on design trends, but also on technology, which are some of the things that we're going to be addressing today. And so with that, we'll get started with the first one, which is storytelling, which is using your website and the tools on your website and the channels around it to tell the story of your community and your location. And storytelling is really, really powerful, partly because our brains are hardwired to understand it. We just tune into it in ways that we don't to other kinds of information. When you're telling a story, you are increasing people's understanding, their comprehension, you're improving their ability to remember what you've told them, their recall, and you're improving what we call resonance, which is how you're impacting them, the impact that you're actually making on the people that you're trying to reach to. I'll pass this over to Aaron now.
Yeah, sounds good. I'd say at Golden Shovel right now, the majority of the marketing that we do revolves around storytelling, whether it's attracting workforce or attracting other potential companies. And story is the original word of mouth marketing. Word of mouth is still to this day the most influential marketing that's out there, and we communicate via stories. And so the first thing we have to determine and figure out is who our story is going to be for. Are we trying to attract workforce? Are we talking to entrepreneurs? Perhaps we're speaking into the business and into the community and creating awareness. But once we've determined that audience, we then can begin on the story. And this is from what I have up in front here is from storybrand.com, and it presents a model for creating a story. I certainly recommend checking them out. How this works is you begin with a character in the story, and the character is not you necessarily as the economic development group. The character is going to be a business owner or a prospective talent that has a problem. They're challenged with something. They need to find more workers, or they need to find some new support inside the community, or maybe they need to have access to some different types of resources. Whatever the problem is, they have to move their business, or they have to relocate their family, or they're considering a new job. And that's where, when faced with their problem, they meet a guide. And the guide can be the economic development organization. It's the Yoda in the story. And the guide says, hey, here's a plan. Here's how you can solve that. You can still grow your business here, or if you move your company here, you can grow your business by solving the problem this way. And it provides that character with a plan, who then is called into action, and the story has to result in either huge success or big failure, mainly because it makes for a good story. And so when we make these stories, they end up being used a whole variety of ways through a variety of different channels, but starting with the website. And so in some case, we did a whole series of success stories for the Wyoming Economic Development Association. They used them both for the individual groups around the region and around the state. They put together an annual success story a newsletter. They also were able to put them onto their website and use them there. Here at oftentimes putting them on the website for sure, successful projects, whether they're workforce attraction success stories, and we'll talk a little more about that later, or if they're business success stories, this is where they sit. So you may use a success story that attracts somebody to the site, but then you want to have additional successful projects to back that up. This is Pasadena's. Here's a Greater Dubuque Development Corporation, and they have one of their success stories right there on their homepage. The other thing to remember here is that storytelling is also very visual. It's not just the story itself. There's going to be the tone of it. There's going to be the graphics that support it. And your website is very visual. Here's an example of Irvine Economic Development Sites, world-class advantages in Irvine. Or the Good Life in Region 5. It's a workforce attraction site. Good Life in every season. Here's some good things you can do in the winter in Minnesota. Utah Valley, the new economic dynasty. Forbes ranked Utah #1 business 5 out of the last 6 years. And a Greater Gallup also, which is down in New Mexico. Just a gorgeous looking site.
So this kind of what brings us to the idea of using data for storytelling, which is one of the things that we spend a lot of time working with our clients on how to do that as successfully as possible with the data tools that they're using. This is an example from the country of Switzerland, which just launched one of our tools, first countrywide implementation in the world, actually. And the maps themselves, you can create all sorts of customized, interesting maps to showcase a variety of things. I'll be giving you some different examples here, but everything from secondary schools to manufacturing sectors. So another great example here from Georgia EMC, where we're taking in this case, the cluster, they're looking at manufacturing and specifically around aerospace, and we're showing where those clusters are. And this is an interactive map, so you can actually click into each one of those. You can play around with the map, zoom in, export, and so that you can really tell the story about a specific industry within the place, but allow the user to literally choose their own adventure along the way, so they can continue to drill down into the data and immerse themselves for the purpose of their own analysis. Because we have so many different data tools that you can embed in a particular website, you really are giving the website user the tools to be able to go in there and understand the story further according to their own needs. An example from the state of Texas using all of our tools as well. That takes us to the next one. So of course, is data, which is part of what we've been talking about as well. But data, there's many different kinds of data. Good quality data is very different from data just for the sake of having that information out there. And we know that businesses are making location decisions based on online research. They're doing that work after business hours, when your office is closed, on weekends. Oftentimes, especially with smaller businesses, that's the time that they have to do research, maybe different time zones or different countries as well. So you need to really make sure that that data is online so that people can immerse themselves in that kind of research. We know that when people are doing that research online, it makes your job easier because they are shorter sales cycle, they have done their due diligence, they've informed themselves, they take less time to buy, and they look at fewer properties. So they really know what they want, and it's always a pleasure to work with people who are in that particular position. And since not all data is created equal, it is very important to ask yourself some questions about the data that you're putting on your website. Is it fully optimized? Because we know from our client websites that up to 35% of visitors are coming in on mobile devices. Something we'll talk about again in a few moments. We want to make sure that that is granular, so people can look from the hyper-local right down to the hyper-regional, that it is interactive, that they can get in their static PDFs on your website are just an absolute waste of time. People don't do anything with that. They cannot drill down into it. They cannot analyze it. And also you're sending them away from your website, which is always against the grain. It's not what you want to be doing. You want it to be visual. You want it to be customized to their needs. Of course, it needs to be accurate and regularly updated. It needs to be robust. So you need to have a wide breadth of data, as well as making sure the depth is there, that it is easily tracked and analyzed, and that it's easily exported and shared. So again, the movement for data is as interactive and analyzable as possible. What kinds of data do you need to offer site selectors and businesses making decisions? So your website should have, at minimum, your interactive demographics, available sites and properties, labor force, business, industry information about your area, the GIS, local data, anything that you have locally that's relevant, talent pool data, which can be notoriously difficult to source, housing, transportation, energy, education, letting people compare, letting people visualize and map it out. The more data you can put out there, the better. And so an example from Zoom Prospector Enterprise site, which is allowing, this is from the APS site, allowing building sites, communities, and business search directly from your website itself, letting people enter in additional filters so that they can define the search according to their need. Again, this is, moving away from those static PDFs because you really want to let them do that. Making sure that they can drill down into the individual properties of sites that's of interest, and then making the reporting around this data as dynamic as possible so that you can actually click on any one of the variables at the bottom and it will be mapped at the top instantaneously so you can visualize the data and see what they look like. An example of a heat map here. You can zoom in to go right down to the block group level. Again, that's that granularity piece as much as possible, and using those visuals to communicate the information as carefully as possible. But in addition to an available sites and buildings database that has that data in there, we want to build in that redundancy for your website user, because your website user doesn't always think to go to one particular tool or navigate to a specific page. So if they're going to be on a page looking for demographics or mapping information, you want to put that data for them there and not require them to click away. So these 6 different intelligence components go right on your website pages, fully interactive, fully mobile responsive, and allow you to do research into demographics, consumer expenses, labor force. It's shareable, it's interactive. The business data one is very, very popular. That's the example of the aerospace cluster that we showed up ahead from Georgia EMC is an example of how you can customize these. So if you're trying to show target industries or sectors in your area, use the business data tool, customize it so it loads showing off the different target industries that you have. Make it as clear as possible. Demographics, again, letting people go in, map, choose the variables that are important to them right there on the demographics page on your website. Allowing comparison on key variables is critical, both within your region, but also across the country. And the compare intelligence component allows you to look at 11, 12 different communities at once if you want to, so that people can really pull them up there and understand the differences between the communities they're looking at. The community profile infographics takes these beautiful, attractive displays of your key data points. You don't need to worry, unlike other infographics, which can be very expensive to put together, and then they're obsolete a year later, and you need to go back in and put the data. These are interactive, live, dynamic infographics where the information is always kept up to date on the back end. You don't need to lift a finger to do that, and the engaging graphics make it clear what the key to data snapshots are. The talent pool intelligence component, the last one that we've added, also allows people to visualize data about degrees conferred, top university programs in the area, top number of graduates, so that that talent pool data, again, is visualized and it's right there on the page about your workforce to inform people what they're looking for. Aaron was showing this Greater Gallup EDC.com example before, and this is an example of how different communities are putting data to work. You can see that the data tools are clearly indicated. People don't have to hunt for them. There's no treasure hunt, no scavenger hunt here necessary, which can be very frustrating to website visitors. It's clean, it's beautiful, it's attractive. All of the information is very clearly indicated. Another example here from Expand Greater Springfield, where you can see from the menu at the top exactly the different places that you want to go if you want to get that interactive data, whether it's workforce and talent, existing businesses, maps, all of that information is clearly indicated. But the other thing that I really like about this website is that we, again, have built in that redundancy. So if people do not think to click in one place, they can find it somewhere else. When you click on site selection, again, you see the places where you can go to do either comparisons or look for consumer expenses, demographics, etc. So you're really trying to, as much as possible, predict what the website user is looking for and then making sure they find it. So there's no scavenger hunt involved at all. And these different tools, if you click through on the consumer expenses, it lets you go through the intelligence component here, which allows you to map, to use charts and graphs, all of which are exportable to look at demographics, consumer expenses, and labor force data. And I guess that's kind of a good segue to our next one, which is number 8 on infographics and visualizing data. So we know that 90% of the information that comes to our brain is visual. Most of us are visual learners. We're able to absorb information that is presented in a graphic form much more quickly, 1/10 of the time from text. Imagine what it's like to look through long spreadsheets on Excel. It's very hard to understand and assimilate that information. And we're exposed to so much information every day, 174 newspapers full of information every day. How much of that do we actually remember? Really a very small proportion. 1% of that actually makes it through to our brains, so we remember it. And as we were talking about before, storytelling is one way that you can really improve that recall. And of course, making sure that it's in a visual format is another way to do that. And the example that we have here is showing you on a map where Texas is, or describing it in text. It's a state found in the South and what its geographic coordinates are. Our brain just cannot process that in the same way, but we instantly understand when we look at a map. So we take that same knowledge about the human brain and how it works, and we've put it to work in our data tools. Again, when you're trying to show off your advanced manufacturing industry cluster, you can describe it with text, but if you show it with an intelligence component like this, you're instantly communicating it. People get that. They can see where the important areas are. And infographics work in the same way. They take this complex ideas or data and they simplify it in illustrations that we can quickly absorb, easily understand, and remember. And we know from the research that websites with infographics embedded in them realize an increase over time of traffic of 12% over those that don't, because these are websites that are providing the information people want. They're more likely to return to it, and they're more engaging. They're also great for social sharing, is the other thing that we see. This is ready-made social content. Another example of an infographic, in this case, this is from the zoomprospector.com, which is the US National Site Selection Tool, free site selection tool. There is 1,000 plus variables on every single community in the US, whether you realize it or not. Check it out and see what there is about your community. And then you can use these same infographics also as intelligence components embedded in your website. So if you want to teach people some of the key data points about your community, you can do that there. And if you're a bigger community, for example, in this case, the state of Idaho, you can also go in and look at all the different communities by changing the geography down there at the bottom. So Aaron, I guess this brings us to business retention and expansion, which certainly is one of the most important things that we're hearing from our clients. Obviously, this is important. A lot of times, existing businesses will be concerned that economic developers are more focused on attracting new investment and maybe concerned that they're being ignored. But we know that the existing businesses in our communities are the lifeblood of our area economies. That's really where 90% of new jobs are coming from. So while it's nice to attract the new headquarters and the new business, we also need to make sure that those businesses feel very supported. As an example from a tool called SizeUp Local Business Intelligence, or SizeUp LBI, on the Greater Oklahoma City website. And what this does is it takes a lot of data and it puts it into very simple, user-friendly dashboard that existing small and medium businesses can use. Businesses who can't afford to pay the big consultants to come into their area. So SizeUp LBI puts that on the website, makes it freely available to your existing businesses. But in fact, you can also find a fair amount of market intelligence data for your existing businesses within your sites and buildings location analysis tool. And they don't always think to go there. And that's really a shame, because in fact, there's incredibly robust information for them where they're able to build custom community clusters. If you want to map every shoe store in an area, if you're looking to map out supply chain logistics, competitors, see what areas are underserved if you're looking to open a new location for a business that already exists, that information is actually there and it's very, very robust. Another example from the Bergen County, New Jersey site, where you can see that there's analysis around a specific location. In this case, it's a property that is available for rent or lease. But you can also do that around a specific address of a business. If you wanted to go in and track every coffee shop in a neighborhood, and you can modify drive time or radius to be able to get that information and plot it out as well. So some of that is training and encouraging your area businesses to use these tools for their own needs and not just think about it as purely investment attraction.
Sounds great. I'll just add in on the business retention and expansion side, just some of the other tools that make an economic development really useful to businesses that are inside the community, along with all of the just fantastic data tools. I can't say enough about Size Up, or the Zoom Prospector tools as far as generating this type of data. But the business directory is a nice way to provide all of the community resources and to the people inside the community. So if they're looking perhaps for some professional services or want to meet some of the other economic development related organizations or investors or banks, those types of things, all of those can be organized in a business directory on the economic development site. And not only is it really useful into the community, but it's also useful for prospects outside looking in. Incentives directory plays the same kind of role. There's incentives that are certainly available for businesses moving into communities, but there's also incentives available for groups that are in the communities expanding, and they can take advantage of these, and having them all available as a resource on the website is very valuable. In the same line, resource libraries, having all the different types of resources, whether it be growth plans, even things in the resource library. We've seen quite a few groups put up high resolution logos and graphics and that type of thing, especially if the businesses are sharing recognition with the economic development group or want to show support, making sure that they have access to those types of resources too. Just as important as the website becomes as a repository for resources, it's also the communication tool, particularly for businesses within the community. And this focuses around news and events in a couple ways. The events on one hand are oftentimes for the businesses that are inside the community, whatever they might be, whether it's workforce related or business related, to be able to make those announcements through the economic development website is very powerful and supportive of those groups. But the news also, just because we started this whole presentation off with storytelling, and as we share the success stories, whether it's a business expanding or growing or winning an award or whatever it might be, it does so much, not just for business attraction and workforce attraction, but also for bringing awareness into the community to support the businesses that are there and to share with the community what's going on also. And so the news and events plays a big role. And that carries itself right over onto putting those news and events into social media. This is an example of Greater Yankton Living. This is a workforce attraction group that's in Yankton, South Dakota. And you see that they have 9,000 people right now that like and follow this page. And because of that, it becomes a huge resource for them to be able to get those news and events further out and then bringing them back to the website for more information. And on that side, that leads us into number 6. Number 6 is microsites. And microsites, first of all, just note that a microsite is not a small website. It is a website that is filtered for a smaller audience or a subset group. And there's different types of microsites. We just talked about one for workforce attraction, industrial parks, international business, target industries. If you have a significant target industry that you're working the industry circuit for, it might make sense to have an entire site dedicated to the strength in that industry, just to give yourself the absolute best first impression with somebody, a prospect from that industry, so that everything that they see when they go to that site supports their needs and what they might be looking for. Also, these microsites are very, very useful for tracking and making sure that as these news stories get pushed out into the social media realm, that we can keep tabs on who's coming back, and we'll be touching on that a little bit later. Here's just a couple of different examples. This is Irvine Chamber's Global Business Resources microsite. This is an entire site designed for the global audience. They didn't want to mix in all of the other type of local chamber-related events and things that the global audience wouldn't necessarily be able to attend, but here's all the information that's available to them, including a global calendar that supports it. So one example. Greater Yankton Living, I showed their Facebook page, but here's their workforce attraction site. This has become incredibly important as workforce attraction has grown. And so to make a microsite that's just for potential workers makes a ton of sense, because there's not really a lot of reason to mix business attraction related pieces with people that are looking to get a job and move a family. They're looking for different stuff. We've seen microsites built specifically for business parks, which can then be connected to the economic development site so they can share information between them. So that way, if there's an asset in the community that you're trying to promote and the economic development group is doing that promotion, they can have a separate site just for that park. And here's one that you might want to touch on, Elisa.
Sure, yeah. So this one from Logan, Utah is a good example of the data portal microsites that we can put together. You know, Aaron's talking about many different kinds of specifically focused sites within a site, which is, I guess, what the microsites are. But the data portal kind of takes all of the data tools, puts them in one place, uses best practices to make sure that they're clearly explained, that they're front and center, that you've got that kind of redundancy built in so that people are absolutely going to be able to find the tool that they're looking for and put it just in one place. So it really combines all of the data tools. And of course, for the end user, it's seamless with the rest of the website, but it just makes sure that everything is organized as simply as possible. Another example here for the Pittsburgh Regional Alliance. We have 7 different templates, so all you need to do really is plug in your images and your branding and your colors, and the data tools are set up for you as well. So it really just takes a couple of days to have these data resource microsites set up for you. Couple of other examples and designs that you can use so that it really doesn't look like a template. It looks just very unique to your location once we put all that information in there. Which takes us to number 5 here, which is mobile. Mobile, absolutely critical. If you are not providing information, especially any interactive tools that are mobile responsive, you're losing people. We all know how frustrating it is to try and negotiate a desktop site from the small screen of your phone or your iPad, and you try and pinch it open and click on something and type it in, and most people after a few seconds of that actually just get frustrated and leave. And the advantage of mobile, in this case with Zoom Prospector, is it's fully mobile optimized and fully featured. So you're not losing any experience by using your device. It looks a little bit different. We've repurposed and redesigned the buttons so that you can do everything you want to do on the desktop site, but you can actually now do it from your phone. And the advantage, of course, of doing it from your phone, especially if you are a site selector or a business person in the field, is that you can click on any of the sites and get turn-by-turn driving directions. So you can go out and check these things on your own. You don't have to get the address and put it into Google Maps to be able to do that. Here's an example of the difference between the desktop site on the left and the mobile version of what that might look like on the right. So you aren't losing anything, you're just making it easier. And when we see that 1/3, it's actually now a little bit over 1/3 of web traffic on our clients' data tool pages are coming from mobile devices, we know absolutely how critical that is. We saw actually mobile surpass desktop on overall website use back before 2015 and 2014, in fact. It's taken a little bit longer when it comes to data tools specifically for site selection, but the trend is absolutely there. And if you're not optimized for mobile, you're losing leads without actually knowing it. And I'll let you chat here a little bit more about responsive design.
Sure, yeah, and responsive design is the idea that you have a website that's designed to respond to the size of the screen. So in this case, here's an example of the Irvine Chamber. We saw the screenshot before where it's on the home page of the desktop, but then on the iPad or a tablet computer, it's smaller. And then on the phone, it adjusts completely. I have another example here that's a little bit larger to see. Here's Midland, Texas. This is what it looks like on the desktop. But the very same site reorganizes itself for a mobile phone. And from our side, we have about 100, a little over 170 sites launched on our Economic Gateway platform right now. And we did our stat. There was 45%, I believe, of the users were hitting it on mobile, which is higher than we had even expected, particularly because economic development does deal quite a bit in the realms of data. But the other audiences that are using economic development sites now, beyond just site selectors and business prospects, are the workforce, other business owners, and all of the other audiences that are using these, and they're oftentimes visiting them on mobile. And that brings us into number 4, tools for workforce attraction. And I'll kick this one off with this article from CNN. This is from June 5th, 2018. There's now more job openings than there are workers to fill them. This has been a trend that has been coming for quite some time. Anyone who's been in economic development knows that about 10 years ago, talent attraction really wasn't that big of a topic. It wasn't that kind of focus. And 20 years ago, you just bring in a business and the talent would come to fill those jobs. And that has changed for so many ways. On one hand, people aren't moving for the job anymore. And second of all, there's just less talent in the talent pool than there used to be, especially as the generations are shifting. And so now we're at a point where the major focus of economic development is going to be talent attraction. And that'll make all the difference for attracting businesses. And so there's a variety of different types of tools that can be on economic development websites for the purpose of talent attraction. In a lot of cases, you may want to do a microsite or a second site that just focuses on this and keeps this audience in one spot. So one, tying back to our first piece about storytelling, sharing your success stories, particularly sharing the success stories of people thriving in your community, is a great way to share an aspirational vision for other workers that are on the outside looking in to think, wow, that's great, I could do that too. Some of the things that can include job postings. These both help with the business retention and expansion group when they need to let people know that there's jobs available, but certainly workforce is going to be interested in what kind of positions there are. One unique idea that we saw, this one came out of Yankton, was they posted all their volunteer opportunities on their workforce attraction website. This is a fantastic idea, because one of the things that we're learning is that, especially with like the millennial generations, like they'll come into your community, but they want to engage the community, but they don't engage in the same way that they used to. They're not necessarily going to join the Elk Club or the Rotary or one of the animal organizations, but they will get involved. And having the different types of volunteer opportunities available for them to join or participate really makes a lot of sense. And having that on there, not just for the potential talent that's moving in, but their families and spouses also. One unique idea that Yankton did is every March they do a 31 under 31. So for 31 days, every day, they highlight another person thriving in their community, doing something that they love, sharing their story, whether it's be an interview, there'll be photos. What's neat about this idea is not only are you highlighting these people for the purpose of workforce attraction so that other workers or other potential people could see all these people thriving in the area, but it also sends great goodwill into the community. These people who the stories are about are likely to share them on Facebook and share them with their friends. That certainly gets more traction and more weight as those stories get pushed out, and it also retains that talent in the community, bringing more community pride and feeling that support. On the job videos, this is a cool one we've seen where people just do short slideshows of different types of jobs that are in the community and then putting them online so people could get a little sense of what they might do working in that community. And of course, social media, like we shared before.
Wow, I really love that volunteer opportunities, and I love the job videos also, because so often we don't show pictures of people doing jobs. We just think of them as empty, abstract things. And so when you show those videos of people doing the jobs, it really helps animate what they're doing. Some very, very innovative ideas. When it comes to workforce attraction, I think that one of our most popular intelligence components has been this talent pool data, because it lets you profile what's available in your community. You can adjust the radius so that obviously you're not just drawing from within the geographical boundaries of your county or your township or even a region. You can make it quite a bit bigger, and you can show really what's happening when it comes to any particular kind of profession or manufacturing. It includes trade schools, technical colleges, all of those different kinds of things. So it gives a profile of what the workforce looks like in your area and what potential there is for next. Aaron, I'm going to turn this back to you. Video and VR. Talk to us about this important trend.
Video. This is all sorts of play right now in as far as new things that are happening inside economic development websites. There's a lot of reasons for video. I mean, first, the bandwidth is high enough where the majority of web data usage comes from video these days. It attracts more people, it engages them, it gets more visits. It's relatively affordable, so you can make content and then use it over and over again. And it's very memorable and impressionable, most importantly, because you have all of the aspects of video that to provide the emotion and tell the stories the best possible way. And so we've seen all sorts of different types of video usages. We were just talking about with workforce attraction, putting videos in there. They don't have to be these big overproduced videos. You can shoot them with your iPhones, even do something local, do an interview, make it feel authentic, and to let people share their stories. In this case, it's a couple homegrown entrepreneurs in York County Development Corporation, Nebraska. They have a whole carousel of videos, and these can be delivered through YouTube. You can do it through Vimeo. These videos can be put onto LinkedIn. They can be put onto Facebook. There's so many different channels for getting this content out. And one of the areas that Golden Shovel is just incredibly excited about right now, I've been focusing on, is virtual reality and the creation of spherical video. So spherical video is video that's shot in a full sphere. Some people, you can call it 360 video or immersive video. Here's an example of the camera right here. You got 6 cameras shooting in different directions, and when they're stitched together, it makes a sphere that you're standing in, which really gives you the feel of being in a place. And the thing about the virtual reality is that it's got it creates empathy in the viewer. It's got a unique way of tricking your brain that makes you feel like you're actually there, particularly when you're looking at spherical video where things are moving. And we've started using this in a variety of different ways. First of all, you can put it onto your website. It can go right onto the video section of a site. You can pull it up and watch the spherical video from the desktop computer by using your mouse to scroll around in a sphere. It's a nice way to show it to people. You can also pull it up on tablets and phones. And in a tablet and phone situation, you'll use the gyro for looking around. By far the best experience is using a headset, something like this. This is the Oculus Go headset. This came out just in May and is by far the easiest to use and the most accessible virtual reality tool. And inside this, there's also a web browser. You can actually pull up websites through virtual reality tools of this nature. But this is Comes in at about $199, has a beautiful screen, has 3D audio, connects to Wi-Fi, and is completely standalone. So what we've done is started making different types of tours for economic development. So there's familiarization tours where you're looking at what businesses are a nice fit for a region, what is the healthcare like, what is the workforce like, what are the neighborhoods like, all the way to what are the natural attractions, what is the like the nightlife like, what kind of events are there. All of that goes into the familiarization tours. It's really a virtual version of the same kind of FAM tour you might do, bringing in site selectors to your community. There's site tours where you're showing off a very specific site, and that's particularly exciting because you can show not just only like a brownfield site or a greenfield site, but you can actually show a vision for that and make buildings pop up on it. There's workforce attraction tours where you could literally show somebody, a prospect, what it's like to be in another person's shoes. Somebody could be showing their business off and say, hey, here's the type of job you'd be doing. This is what it actually looks like. Here's your coworkers. Or it could be from the perspective of a worker saying, hey, here's my house. Here's me at my job, and here's me fishing 5 minutes after work. And tourism is a natural fit. And in this example, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's on video, but I'll do my best to show you. Elisa, could you spin this video around and just show how it's in a sphere?
Sure. And the buffering is an issue with GoToWebinar, I have to say.
It's a stunning picture.
Yeah.
Rest location spanning northeast Minnesota and northwest.
Yeah, unfortunately, video doesn't go very well on a webinar.
Nope, not a problem. That was fine. But you can get a little sense of what that's like, and you can see examples of this technology at the Golden Shovel site or at placevr.net. One thing that we've done more recently is being able to make these 3D buildings appear, and they're absolutely phenomenal way to show a vision. So not only here's a potential site that's for sale in Ohio, but this is a 3D model that's been placed in it in a realistic fashion. You can even still see the other building over here on the corner. When you're wearing your VR goggles, it feels like a building just appeared right under your feet. It's a real exciting experience. And where this is going is the ability to have full virtual meetings where we can take the spherical videos and go into a virtual environment. In this case, here's a meeting that's happening between John Longshore from Global Location Strategies and Brian Hansen and Ian Vincent from the Apex region in Minnesota. They're having a economic development familiarization meeting virtually. Longshore is in the tuxedo, and this is Brian and Ian. They're pulling up the spherical video inside their virtual room, and then they're going into that spherical video and having a discussion about it. Inside here, they're looking around together, they're talking about the tour, and John Longshore's learning about the community. And Financial Times recognized this as one of the 2018 online trends economic developers cannot ignore: virtual reality exploration. And so the next piece in all of this is advanced marketing. Number 2, we're almost to the end. I put together a case study I wanted to show you guys about advanced marketing that shows how you take that story from the very beginning, and this will all come around and tie back to number 1, which is coming up. So this particular story starts with, this is all from a group called One East Kentucky. One East Kentucky is a regional economic development organization in eastern Kentucky, and they were looking to attract new aerospace businesses to the region. At the time, they didn't have any real major employers other than the mining industry, which was really struggling, and they were in a very, very tough spot. I'd say one of the toughest spots in the country for economic development. But they had a strong workforce. They proved that they could train them, and they got this win last year of Brady Industries, bringing $1.3 billion investment and creating over 1,000 jobs. And so what we did, we took this story. Here is our success story. This is an aircraft aluminum plant. We put together a LinkedIn Pulse article, 7 reasons why aerospace companies are considering Eastern Kentucky. There's a photo from the Brady Industries. Now this went on to the One East Kentucky's LinkedIn page, their company page, and on Charles Sexton, he's the president and CEO, on his page also. As you can see here, 7 reasons why aerospace companies are considering Eastern Kentucky. And before this article got sent out, we did a couple things. First of all, we did some research, and we worked with a group called Related that, using AI, was able to determine where all of the aerospace companies were, and we could determine the type that we needed. We didn't need service-related aerospace companies. We were looking for manufacturing, and determined where we wanted to send our messaging to directly. So what states, what regions. We don't need to send this message to everywhere if there aren't any aerospace companies there. And then on the One East Kentucky page, went in and made an aerospace, some sub-pages, kind of a microsite. This one's directly inside their site. And here's a picture of the aerospace page. There's the validation for it. You can look at the cluster, see some of the different groups. And then more importantly is that once you get there, you can see this one article, second down to the right, is the 7 reasons why aerospace companies are considering Eastern Kentucky. But there's a whole host of other articles that are on here already that also support aerospace, other success stories, that when somebody gets to this page, they are ready to learn more. And then we ran the campaign, ran it for about the article ran for over a month. We did a part paid campaign, part organic campaign for the first week of September. And you can see we got 11,688 impressions, 133 clicks, and 16 social actions, which are shares and likes. The organic reach had almost a 3% engagement with the 23 social actions. And that's exciting. That's you can get anything above 1% on LinkedIn, you're doing well. Now, what's really exciting is those numbers are all fine and dandy to know that there's been clicks and shares, but we can see exactly who's clicking on this. We know which aerospace companies caught that. So we can see that Boeing, of 699 people that saw it, 7 of them clicked and read that article. Or Lockheed Martin, we know that there were 210 impressions. We know that the people were from the aviation, aerospace, and defense industry. We know the size of the companies. We know where they're from. Like I'd mentioned earlier, we marketed it to very specific places. We did Seattle, for example, because they were going to an aerospace conference in Seattle the following week. We chose LA and parts of Canada because of their strong aerospace communities. And then lastly, we know that the people that clicked on these carried the roles that we were looking for. We were trying to get to decision makers, and can see that some of these groups were owners, some were managers. We have presidents of the program. We have directors of engineering, product managers. These are all the types of people that we were looking to get this article in front of. And it was a great success. So much LinkedIn acknowledged us for doing a campaign for One East Kentucky, and how we took the story and targeted it. And then just to add a second piece that happened to this success story, not only did we promote and get some great response and great following, get the word out about the aerospace, but just 4 months later, they had another big announcement. Enerblue, a battery company, was moving into the region. And so mid-December, we used our same LinkedIn network, and we put together another Pulse article and shared that out with the same community so they could see the progress and growth that was happening. But what caught us off guard, and this is really exciting, was for Facebook. There was an article in Facebook that we put on. It was a video of just an awareness video announcing that Enerblue's coming to Eastern Kentucky. And we put it on their page. And what I want to show you is right underneath this video, you can see 248,568 people reached. There was 129,000 views and 2,248 shares. This is amazing. like, why would an economic development video go viral? And if you look through the 2,248 shares, what people are doing, they're adding their comments and sharing this on their Facebook page, and particularly in the comments, they're putting in people's names. And so there are all these people unemployed there, and they're recommending to their friends and to each other and to their family members that they check out and get a job there. So they were putting in their names, and that would automatically post it onto the other person's wall, and then their friends would see it, and they would share it. And it was a massive success. And so they had lines and lines of applicants ready to take those jobs when Interblue was ready to hire.
That's a great example. That's the kind of sharing and social media reach that you really hope for with any kind of post. So that's really fantastic example. Social sharing, of course, is fully embedded onto all of the data tools. So if you're trying to use them to tell the story of your location, you want, of course, people to be able to take that initiative and do it themselves. Every property report, maps, images, custom built maps, all of the results of the different reports, of course, are fully shareable in a variety of different social contexts. So you just look for that share link. They can also be exported in different ways as well. But really being able to reach that social place is critical. And I know that if you're the community contact manager for your location, you're probably constantly racking your brain for content. That content lives in these tools. It is an inexhaustible source of content. Maps, property of the week, community information, infographic blocks. Make sure you take advantage of it, and you can actually program your, fill up your calendar from the beginning of the month, make sure that you've got these posts set in there so that you're ready to go. Let me just see if I had a feeling that we clicked on I clicked through a couple of them. So here's some other examples of communities that use the tools for promoting the tools themselves, of course, but then mining the tools to promote the content. So properties of the week, businesses of the week, interesting heat maps, charts about education attainment, data, talent pool data, for example, clusters, so many interesting things that you can pull out of there and tell that story on social. And of course, if you go to the US National Site Selection Portal, zoomprospector.com, there's over 1,000 data points for every community in the nation, and you can build some really interesting maps. You could do rankings, the top communities for aerospace, consumer expenditures. What are the top 10 communities for book sales, for example, communities under 500,000 people? You can build all sorts of multivariable searches and then quickly and easily share them directly from the tool themselves. And that takes us to our number one, which is tracking and lead generation. And of course, this is really critical because you can build a beautiful website, but if you throw a party and nobody comes, then you're not really accomplishing very much. So making sure that your website is found is absolutely critical. Thinking about where those backlinks exist. When I work with our clients one-on-one, when they're launching their data tools, we talk about how to optimize that in their region. So what are the ways to make sure that all of their community stakeholders are linking back to their website and to their tools? How do we improve SEO without having to spend any money necessarily? What are some of the quick, simple things that you can actually do? For example, go in and edit your Wikipedia page for your region. It's free, it's easy, as long as it's not blatantly self-promotional. Make sure the link and a description of economic development activities are in there, and then put a link to your website. Wikipedia is always going to be one of the top things that turns up in any kind of search. And then use the new US National Site Selection Portal, if you're in the US, of course, to make sure that you optimize the content on there, whether you're a client of ours or not. There's opportunities to do that. If you're outside of the US, be patient. There are things in the works. Speak to your local communities, and certainly some of these things are possible as well. So we want to make sure that you're helping people find your community and your website, whatever you've got on there, because you want to make sure that that is certainly possible. Now, the other thing is, how do you go to the back end and understand what is actually happening with your website? And a lot of our clients have heard of Google Analytics. I would say a small number of them actually go in and use it. Google Analytics will tell you information about groups of visitors, how they found your website, where they're coming from, what language they're using, what pages they land on, how long they spend there, and then where they leave. But you don't know anything about who they are. The second tier of analytics that we offer with all of our tools is proprietary Zoom prospect analytics. So that gives you economic development analytics. You still don't know who they are, but you know what are the top properties being searched, what are the top types of properties. For example, suddenly are there a lot of warehouse searches, or are people looking for industrial facilities or retail spaces? That tells you a little bit about strategy for supply and demand in your region, but it also tells you what are the top communities and properties that are being viewed and searched. And then the last most critical element of that analytics piece is a lead gen ID. This is using reverse IP lookup technology from lead forensics. What we've done is we've gone in and coded this lead forensics a little bit further. So that means when people are coming to your website pages and your data tools, and they're actually doing searches, let's say they're looking for 20-foot high ceilings or industrial facilities, or they're looking around a specific county or drive time around an address, we can tell you based on commercial IP address what companies are on your website and exactly what they're searching for and looking at in your data tools. So suddenly you could know, for example, the GIS planning is spending a lot of time looking at warehousing facilities in these two counties in your location. So you can now contact them. You won't know that it's Elisa at GIS Planning, but you'll know someone from GIS Planning is doing that. So you can contact them proactively, and you can say, I see someone from your company's been on our website. You've been searching for X, Y, and Z. Can I help you with anything? Are you looking for any additional information? So there's this kind of customer service approach. We want to make sure, of course, that it isn't creepy in any way. You can't see who they are specifically, and you can't see anything else they're doing on their computers. But reverse IP lookup, especially when it's coded in this way for your data tools, gives you incredible actionable intelligence about what companies are doing on your website and what they're actually looking for. And the reports are pretty detailed. They give you information about who the company is, a little bit of information about where they are, the specific office that was being used, the IP address, because some companies, of course, have many geographic locations. You can assign this to a salesperson or a specific person in your team if you want to, so they get automatic email updates. And then you can go in and see actually what those things look like. And Aaron, I know that this is something that you guys offer to clients as well.
Yep, exactly. And that all of the lead tracking, we work with the same organization, helped to put together a portal for economic development from Lead Forensics. And it's a nice complement between what you guys are doing with GIS planning and us also being able to see what pages people are looking at, how much time they're spending, repeat visits, who's coming back, and all of that plays a role in where we're going here, which is lead conversion. Because ultimately, the website has shifted more and more towards an actual lead generation tool. I mean, just 10 years ago, it was a brochure, really. You know, we had some data, it was online, it was great. People could come, but we didn't know who was coming or what they were doing, or all we knew that was that if you didn't have that information up there, you were probably losing deals. But that's changing now. And now the tools are actually being used for more actual generation. Now, one of the groups that we work with is HubSpot. HubSpot does a fantastic job. They're one of the leaders in this inbound marketing idea. And inbound marketing works like this. This is actually off their site, where you have your stranger that you don't know yet, and you put out your, let's say we're going to work with One East Kentucky, we put out our Aerospace article onto LinkedIn, and somebody reads it, and they're like, oh, I want to learn more, and they click on the link, and they come back to that Aerospace micro site, or the page inside their site. Now they're a visitor. Now, we now know that this visitor is from a specific company, and we know roughly that they're interested in aerospace. And so that becomes a lead. And what the inbound methodology does is it's what happens to the people after they visited your website. So it's great that they stop by, but what do you do to keep your organization at the top of mind of awareness? Now that they have bought the bait, we put out the story, we put it out, and they clicked on it, and they came here. You can use this technology to support them. So let's say if we know they're in aerospace or interested in aerospace, maybe they're interested in aerospace webinar, or one of the dynamic infographics that you might have made, or maybe they'd be interested in a white paper or another success story. or an interview by another aerospace organization in town. And so you can create that content and offer it to them to keep your community and region at top of mind awareness with those prospects. Ultimately, the goal is they're going to become customers, and then they're going to promote you because they love the new community that they're in.
We have a summary of our top 10 trends, I think, refreshed for the 2018-2019 year. So you can go back and take a look at them if you want to go back and review. We will be sending you the slide deck and then the recording of today's webinar as well. And I think this is actually a pretty good snapshot, would you say, Aaron, of some of the critical trends in this area right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I just want to also note, both Lisa and myself will be at the IADC conference in Atlanta coming up this weekend. I'm going to be there Saturday through Tuesday, and I think you guys are going to be there through Wednesday, I believe. So feel free to stop by our booths. Feel free to reach out to us. Love to meet you and learn more. If you come by the Golden Shovel booth, we'd love to give you a demo of the VRs. You'll never forget the first time you try it.
It is pretty cool, absolutely. I know we've taken people slightly past the hour here, but I do have a couple questions that I think are really useful to take a look at. The first one is, what are suggestions to include on a bare minimum budget? So I will just say that what people often, when it comes to the online data tools, think that this is beyond anything their community can afford. In fact, we index pricing to population size, so you do not need to be concerned about that. We make sure that small communities as well as statewide and entire countries can afford this. And also the intelligence components are very, very inexpensive and affordable and really do a huge job of making sure your website is sticky and interactive and has fresh content. And Aaron, what would you suggest when it comes to website on a budget?
Oh, I would agree, and both of our solutions are software as a service model. So the idea, we thinking down the same route. You can't afford to buy one tool or the next tool, or then worse, can you afford to keep it updated or current? So we just made a system where all of the economic development tools that we've created are available. All of the different things you saw today and many, many others are just part of that package. And then by keeping it as a software as a service, we can keep adding to it, upgrading and making sure it's always current and doesn't fall behind. So it is very affordable, even for the people with the budgets.
Excellent.
Which is everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, budgets are always important, no matter the size of your organization. A question about VR video: are 360 immersive videos and images considered virtual reality?
Not necessarily. Like really, when you get into the virtual reality meetings where you're actually there and there's avatars and there's some, that is the true virtual reality. I think a 360 video and immersive video is not, it uses the same type of technology, but it'd be misleading in that you're not walking through it. You're actually standing in a place watching it. With that said, there's combinations of the two. Like we said, you could have a virtual reality room that you're in that you then pull up a spherical video and go in and visit your community in a meaningful way. That's certainly a possible. Plus, the 360 videos, when you start adding in virtual objects and items and pieces into them, or tied into some of the other technologies, can certainly carry a much more virtual reality feel to it.
Okay, we do have a number of other questions, but they're kind of specific case study type questions related to their example. So I think, Aaron, we can reach out directly to people for answers to those questions. We will get back to you if you are one of those people. Otherwise, I wanted to thank you all very, very much for taking time out of your day today. As Aaron says, we will be at the IDC annual conference in Atlanta. So come and check us out in the exhibit hall. We both have booths down there. Aaron, it's a pleasure as always working with you.
Oh, and likewise. Pleasure doing this once again with you, Elisa. It's always fun, and thanks everybody for attending.
Have a lovely afternoon. Thank you again. Bye-bye.